March 11th, 2013 Personnel Finance Committee to order. Need approval of the agenda, please. Thank you. Public comment. Any public comment? Apparently no public comment. Move on to committee items. Need approval of the minutes of the 2011 or February 11th.
Move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be the Finance Department monthly report. Whoa, you just skated in.
Sorry about that. You ready?
Oh, we need to vote on the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It passes. Next up, the minutes of the personnel meeting. Personnel finance. Finance, here we go. Getting used to the new system.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we're starting a new fiscal year, so what you have is the financial statements for the 1 month ended January 31st. Nothing really significant to report at this point other than to point out a couple of major items, and that is the expenditures do not reflect quarterly transfers. They are recorded the middle month of each quarter, so the transfers will be shown in February, which will increase our expenditures for the period. In addition, there are certain items that the expenditure level is above the parameter of 8%, and in most cases this is because of annual maintenance agreements that are typically paid in January. I've detailed some of those items. There was a couple other items. For example, North Lawn Complex Maintenance, there's a service agreement for the elevators that's included in that total. That's an annual expense. Human Services Building, there's a seasonal increase to the utilities, plus again there's a service agreement and so forth in there, which explains the expenditures that may be above the parameters. So, and also one other additional item for the last page of the report, which includes other funds for which the commissioners are responsible, that is for which you have a budget. I've included the Jackson County Road Fund in total among the funds for the first time, reflecting the transactions for January. Thank you.
Questions? Discussion? Thank you, Jim. Next up, we have the County Treasurer Report with Karen Kaufman.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Well, as you have seen, I hope, I distributed several reports and sent those via email attachments, as well as put on the Board Docs program, which is a pretty slick program, by the way. And I'm not going to spend a considerable amount of time talking about the December 2012 financials with regard to the investment portfolio and or January 2013, unless there's questions. I'd like to spend just a couple minutes talking about the February month and 2013 and actually go through the annual report, which is a new report that I'd like to spend some time with, if that's okay with the board. All right. Okay, this is the standard report that you've seen from my office before. It's our monthly analysis summary, if you will, of the current status of the investment portfolio. This is as of February 2013. And you can see here, I do the highlights because there's a lot of supplemental information, but this is just a quick reference summary page. As of month-end February, our portfolio was up to $56,425,315,000. Of that portfolio, We had $8,000 in certificates of deposit, which is 14% of the total portfolio. We had $14,422,364 invested in money market accounts. That's where I keep monies liquid in case we need liquidity or cash flow as we're moving forward through the year. That comprises 26% of the portfolio, and then the larger share of the portfolio at 34%, 60% was $34 million in treasuries and agencies. And that breakdown you will see on the next page here. If I can scroll through here without messing this up. There we go. This is the breakdown of that. Those are the different holdings. You can see the different banks, the different institutions, the different treasuries. And nothing more new to report. We're still just a couple of months into the year. We're collecting our revenue, delinquent taxes. We won't see the lion's share of that revenue until September, October. So this is just $378,000 of a $21 million total budget that's planned. Dog licenses are up to $39,000, and I think we budgeted $70,000 total for the year for that. So we're moving along nicely with issuing of dog licenses, and our passports are just over 3,500. I'm going to go ahead and forward through then to the supporting documents unless there's questions. This is our monthly pooled interest. We pool and allocate interest. These are the different funds, and we allocated just over $1,000 in interest to these separate funds here. It's kind of a busy spreadsheet, but if you ever wondered who this impacts, this does a nice job of telling you what org keys and what different agencies and departments are impacted by our pooled interest. The next sheet talks about the unallocated interest. And then here's where I want to spend a lion's share of the time talking about the February reports. We have two maps that I present to this committee each March because we have, this is a map of the county, the different townships, and you can see the city numbers are reflected over here in the margin. What this tells us is that we had new forfeitures, new delinquencies that came to our office March 1st, and that's called our settlement. And these are the brand new numbers that were not paid at the local units and are now coming into the treasurer's office for us to begin our 25-month cycle collection. So what that number means there, the beginning number, we had 2,500 parcels that came to us from the local units, the townships and the city combined. And that is higher than we had last year. I think the total amount was, I've got that number right here, 191 parcels more than this time last year, March 1st. And that's been a steadily increasing number, unfortunately. But this is the beginning of the new cycle, so we've got 25 months that we attempt to collect. So this just goes to show you the new taxes that are now part of the collection process at the treasurer's office. The next and more important map that I want to talk to you about is those that are pending foreclosure. If you recall, the treasurer's office forecloses at the end of this month, March 31st, for those tax parcels that we've tried to collect for the past 25 months and they're still unpaid. The number that you need to look at here is the 753. That is how many parcels that still remain at the treasurer's office unpaid and that we are still trying to collect. That is pretty high. Last year, it was 727 parcels. So, and unfortunately, the past couple of years, that number's been very, very high. We will continue the next couple of weeks to make contact with those people. We will be making personal service visits to the houses, the structures that still have delinquent unpaid taxes in an attempt to make that last effort for them to come in and collect and pay those off so that we do not foreclose. There's really no surprises as far as when I'm looking at the township maps. The larger townships have a larger number. That's proportional. The city is, again, trending pretty high, 344 parcels total. What used to happen 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, is that we would have the lion's share of tax foreclosures coming from the city and not so many coming from the townships. But the past 2 years, past 2.5 years, we've seen that kind of flip-flop. The number of parcels in the city has still been high, but we're also seeing more foreclosures happening in the townships. That's reflected again here on our map. These numbers are important because I know that you like to report out to your constituents what's happening in your local area, so this is what we're looking at. And it's not a firm number. We don't know what's going to happen. I can't tell you that Springport's going to end up with 13 tax foreclosed parcels because they may come in and redeem prior to month end. But this is just to give you an idea as to the outlook dealing with tax foreclosures. On a brighter note, I'd like to report that we've got two programs that we're working through January and February foreclosure prevention-wise to help these taxpayers. There were federal dollars that became available January 15th, announced by MSHDA, and part of those dollars was a loan rescue program. These were dollars that became available and specifically target those who qualify and are eligible to help them pay delinquent taxes. So we are working in conjunction with Community Action Agency and the taxpayers, and we're directing them to those resources in the hope that we can prevent foreclosure for those people. So that's pretty exciting to see. In January, we had our show cause hearing. That is the hearing that we allow the taxpayers to come in and talk to our office about the circumstances and situations that they're dealing with. The panel granted 13 hardships. That is just a one-year extension. It does not forgive them of the taxes that are owed. But I do think that that's a key foreclosure prevention tool that we have in our toolbox. Then again, in February, we had our judicial hearing before Judge Wilson, where Judge Wilson granted, I think it was 63 taxpayers extensions. So we're able to help close to 73 people, taxpaying citizens this year through these foreclosure prevention methods. So we're doing what we can with the tools that we have to assist those people that are in that situation. If there's no questions on the map, okay. The last 2 pages are just the specific breakout details as to parcels and principal residence exemption data. It actually shows you the whole cycle from beginning to end, March 1st of 2012, and then the last page talks about March 1st, 2013. So that is the February report that I'd like to share with you. And then, if I may, talk to you about this new report that yes. Yes, please.
Karen, 2 years ago, at the behest of one township, you bundled some properties, and you and I were concerned that some of those properties might come back. Are they going through the foreclosure process yet, or do we not get to know aware of that if it was done 2 years ago for another year?
I cannot tell you. We've not been monitoring the parcels that closely in that township. I can do some research and see if they are on track, but my thinking is they're not going to come to us through the foreclosure process till next year. Okay, but I can check on those for you. Sure. Yes?
Question. On these foreclosures, is there money out there available to help people? I know there was several years ago, but everybody ran out because there's such a demand. Is there money, and where is it, if there's money to help people keep from losing their homes?
Yes, as I mentioned just a minute ago, MSHDA has some dollars, federal dollars, that have become available, and we're directing people to the local Community Action Agency, and they're taking the time to work with these people, help them fill out the application process, and to see if they're eligible and or qualify for those dollars. So yes, we do have dollars available this cycle, this year, and we haven't had dollars available, I think 2 years ago was the last time we had some federal funding that came through the pike that we were able to help people with. So there are dollars available. We're directing people to Community Action Agency for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm just going to skimmed through this report here. This is the first time that the Treasurer's Office has presented this type of a report. It definitely was a learning process for me. There was a lot of information in here, so hopefully you find it informative and educational. I'm not going to go through every page, but I just want to take a moment to highlight. Here's an opportunity, if you've had a chance to look at that, to offer comments, suggestions. I will be looking to present this again going forward, and we'll look to take your input to make changes if necessary. This is really a document for you, the full board, and the citizens of the community, so I hope that it's beneficial. The first couple pages are just an introductory. They are highlights of events and things that occurred in 2012. We became a designated passport acceptance facility, so we were working through learning what that entailed. We implemented the one-stop shop kiosk for the second floor. We work with the local units to help with taxation errors, to preview their billings before they go out to make sure that things are correct. That actually is not a new service, but I wanted to let the commission know and the community know that we work in tandem and in partnership with the local units. Electronic filing of the forfeiture deed recordings. I believe the Register of Deeds office has reported out on this before. It's been a very interesting process, and it's been very fruitful. We've actually been successful with this process, and we're looking to implement hopefully more filings, and that's listed as one of the goals here for this year, and we've already started the process with regard to that. The next couple of pages talk about the County Treasurer's Office being the custodian of county funds. You'll see kind of a nice little pie chart there that talks about the different types of revenue that come into the County Treasurer's General Fund. There just gives you a breakdown as to the total revenues for 2012 and against the expenditures. I wanted to talk about the different types of processing and outputs that the County Treasurer's Office does, and I really struggled with this portion of it because I want to make sure that I don't throw a bunch of numbers out there and they're not relevant and they're not meaningful. So this area, I think, posed the most difficulty for me, and I will look to take your comments and suggestions and look to morph this into something that's hopefully worthwhile for you. I don't want to just throw a bunch of numbers that has no meaning and translates into what that means for the citizens. So I was careful to put what I thought was interesting, showing some different trends that we see throughout the office. The next section talks about passports and how we've learned our way through that last year. We are beginning to become more of a revenue generator with regards to that. We kind of had some bumps that we had to go through the beginning or the end of 2011. But you see there that we are capturing now this general fund money. We're excited about that value-added service that we can provide. Here is just to highlight, the next section talks about the investment pool fund. This talks about what my goals are with regard to the investment pool. The three primary objectives, number one, and will always be number one, is protection and safety of the principal. Liquidity and yield or return. Those are the things that I look at when I do investing with the surplus funds for the county. Here's a chart that talks about the different, over the past 4 years, the type of interest income that we've earned. There's a historical comparison of the dollar total of the portfolio over the past 4 years. This is a snapshot as to what the portfolio looked like at the end of 2012. And then I wanted to talk to and educate and be informative about the largest portion of what we do in the Treasurer's Office, which is delinquent property tax administration. This gives us a nice history as to how the taxes come to our office, what happens when they do come to our office, and the different processes that we are doing with those collection efforts. As I just mentioned to you, March 1st of every year is settlement. That talks about this in this paragraphs here, and then it also talks in this chart, gives you a nice trend as to the fact that we had in 2011 10,959 parcels that came to the Treasurer's Office for collection efforts, which totaled just over $11 million. And that is a number that you need to be aware of as a commissioner, because those dollars, those taxes are purchased from the delinquent tax revolving fund. So we buy those taxes from the local units every March. That's what that chart talks about, is the different parcels that we buy from them and the total dollar amount. And then we begin our collection efforts. This next page talks very nicely, I think, it's a flow chart, talks about the whole process of the tax collection. Here it talks about forfeiture, that's the first year that's delinquent at the treasurer's office. We continue our efforts of collection through foreclosure prevention, and then after the 25th month, we foreclose. So it gives you a nice snapshot as to the whole process. There's 2 cycles that we deal with in the treasurer's office, the forfeiture cycle and the foreclosure cycle. Hopefully those will, that information will be fruitful for you. Another bit of information that you may not have been aware about, the Jackson County Treasurer's Office is one of the county treasurers, one of maybe 5 or 6 treasurers throughout the state of Michigan that actually collects delinquent personal property tax. We have an agreement with the local units that we do this for them as a service, and it talks about this and the history of it here, and you can see that the type of revenue that we generate for the past 4 years is highlighted. We also are responsible for the dog and kennel license program. So we issue the dog licenses every year. This gives you a highlight as to, I think last year, end of last year, we issued just over 9,600 dog licenses for the entire county and generated over $107,000 in doing that. So this gives you hopefully a little bit more understanding or feel for what we do in the county treasurer's office. And that is all that I have to report, unless there are questions.
Questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Lutchka?
Very good report.
Thank you.
The comment in there about the 3-year dog licenses, are any counties that are doing that? And so,
Yes, there are. It's probably a third of the counties throughout the state of Michigan that are doing the 3-year licensing for the dog licenses. And actually, most recently, within the past 2 years, there's been several counties that have made that change to offer a 1-year license as well as the 3-year, and I'm going to be working with them, seeing what their analysis was like. Definitely want to look at the cost-benefit analysis before we jump into that, but from what I've seen from my fellow treasurers, colleagues, they indicate that it's definitely worth looking at and making that a value-added service for the citizens, for the community.
very good. I have one more, but
Commissioner Elwell?
Karen, just quickly, are any of the townships doing dog licensing yet or not, or is it all treasure?
Yes, absolutely. There's a small minority of them that are issuing them. We give them the option. I know Napoleon Township, Norval Township, Concord, I believe. I can't give you all of them. I don't know what they are right offhand, but there are some townships that prefer to offer that service.
Do they do quite a few that way or not, I wonder?
You know, it's been waning over the past couple of years. We've heard from the local townships when they come in and do their settlement, they bring their dog tags when they come in March 1st. And over the past couple of years, we've been hearing from them that it used to be worthwhile for them to issue at the local level, at the township level, and not so much anymore. And I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if people are just not coming into the local township to get the licenses and just working through the county. Sometimes they can also get them from the animal shelter, so people have that as an option. Sure.
Commissioner Rice?
Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Also, good report. Thank you. You had down here, as far as delinquent taxes being paid, you put down here you started a credit card program in 2009. Mm-hmm. Have you seen an increase in payments because of that? I see the numbers here. People using credit cards?
As far as reducing the number that we foreclose on, is that what your question is?
As far as people actually paying their delinquent taxes with credit cards?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we implemented the program in 2009, we were shocked at how many people used that form of payment, and we've seen more of an increase in the office, people coming in and using credit card or debit card transactions for payment versus online. When they go online, there's a 3% convenience fee, so that may be a deterrent for those. But it's it's definitely a nice form of payment option for the citizens. They are utilizing it.
Okay, another comment, not to throw gloom on this, because obviously with these forfeitures and ultimately foreclosures, obviously it doesn't look like it's getting any better. In fact, it looks like it's getting worse. But again, not to throw gloom on this, but I've heard where most economists believe that people who are using credit cards for instance, like on delinquent taxes, they're using high-interest credit cards, which we've gotten this problem before in this country, and it's happening again. They're using these credit cards to pay their delinquent taxes, but ultimately, most economists believe they will not be able to pay back the institutions where they get these credit cards from. So it's a vicious cycle.
That point is not lost on me, Commissioner Rice. When we went to implement, that was definitely one of my concerns. But what I do, my personal mission is to also work on the financial literacy portion of that. I do that as kind of something that I try to educate people outside. So you're right, we are making it easier for those that want to have the option to pay via credit card, but we're also trying to make sure that we collect those taxes. So it's a balancing act.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lechka, please.
The annual interest income, that chart that you have there, shows that we had quite a lot more interest in 9 and 11. Is that your long-term investments coming due that prior to the...
We've seen a lot of the long-term fixed being called, and unfortunately, I'm at the mercy of what the market is doing. As I mentioned before, my number one goal is safety and protection of principal. So it does look kind of skewed, how that chart is, but unfortunately, we're in the ebb and flow. The past couple of months, January and February, have been very good. So I'm optimistic that we may see some, hopefully, additional earnings, but one never knows. Yes,
On the dog licenses, the ones being sold at township level,
yes.
it seems to me they make 50 cents a dog license, is that correct? To sell them?
I don't think that is correct.
Do you know what they make? You have any idea?
I don't. We try to give them the incentive, but it's a value-added service that they want to have at the local.
I think it's very valuable to be able to get a dog license. It's a local level. Who sets those fees? Is it the treasurer, the county board?
You know, I'm not even sure if there's a set fee. We allow them the opportunity to either sell them or not sell them, so.
I think it's pretty minuscule, the amount they make. It almost isn't worth getting up and coming
I
to the
don't think the
window
Board of Commissioners has ever set any type of fee like that.
for. Okay, maybe I'll check into that, see if
I
we
can
can get
check
more.
into that for you,
But,
let you
okay.
know.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any more?
I'm done,
Thank you, nice report.
unless you have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, the Human Resources
That one?
Department. Reporting on compensation system information. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, you have a report before you. It's simply for your information, and it does provide some history of the county's current compensation system, how jobs are priced and evaluated. Also, I did share some information regarding modern methodology with respect to compensation systems, and hopefully this information will assist you as you move forward in addressing compensation issues. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Board? Well, do we have a presentation? Moving on to facilities. Approval of a purchase of a new plow truck. Welcome, Rick.
Good afternoon, everyone. First up, we have a request to purchase a new facilities truck. Gladly take any questions on that. That's utilizing the State of Michigan My Deal program.
I'd so move the proposal.
Support. Supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I apologize, folks. We vote because we want to try to use the board doc to vote. Be so kind.
Wait.
Did you see it? Did you vote?
No. Oh, there we go. I have to go back there.
Back to the board docs tab.
Do I vote no?
Sorry to cause so much consternation.
Well, it's not there now. Already
A
voted.
box will pop up.
We'll vote again. Hold on.
I'm Snick. Got it. I was snickering, and our chair told me not to snicker. He could have done this to me in Human Services. Instead, he didn't. Commissioner.com.
Okay, so Dave was on one of those tabs. Okay, just need to go back to this one.
Okay.
You good? I think he's good. He's done now. Oh, he's gonna do that one now too? And then two, right? Because he's on all three.
Password? Okay.
Just shout it out now.
Password's modern waste.
Oh, you can vote for him.
So will the main meeting be done this way too, voting by board docs?
From here forward. It'll get better as we go.
See?
Is it behind this wall here?
You guys had a perfect picture for this board doc story, too. You were like,
What's Phil doing? He doesn't have to vote on it. He doesn't have to vote on this. He just wants to learn.
That's a photo bomb.
Duh. Forgot he's in the chair. Wow, Phil. A struggling commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, can I remind you we're recording?
being recorded live.
What was that again, Phil?
Camera's on.
For all that work to be there tomorrow.
Mr. Chair, in education, we've learned that you have to
Really don't mind if I look
Yeah.
over your shoulder and see how you're voting.
Let's move on to the sheriff's vehicle, so Phyllis.
Something wrong for you.
Okay, passed unanimously. Next, we will have another request, Rick?
This is one that will, upon approval here at Personnel and Finance, would go to the full board, and it's for the Sheriff's Department 2013 vehicle purchase.
So moved.
Support.
Oh, it said something.
It should pop up.
Motion needed. You gotta type in a motion.
Just go back to the beginning, it should pop up.
Approve the purchase of the dog vehicles.
I tried to make it easier this year. In and out. It caused customers confusion last year.
Did that hear us talk?
There you go.
Here we go.
Okay. So you-
Oh, we're good.
Well, he had two items.
Good. Just one more.
Hey, he's doing it.
And this is a request to purchase a new vehicle for the Equalization Department, and Director Scott here is to help explain this need, if we need any. Yes.
Move to approve.
Wow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Basically, with this item, you have, we're looking at three options, and we're looking for recommendation from the board so we can prepare a policy dealing with this matter. And the three options are basically chief, elected officials, chief deputies, salaries could go up to within $1,000 of their salary, and they would also be eligible for the increases annually that non-union people are eligible for. Second option is within 10% of the chief elected official's salary, and again, same option as far as salary increases, eligible for non-union raise increase. Or the third option is, again, the 10%, or excuse me, not 10%, it is the option where the board says, we will give consideration to the chief deputies of the elected officials. At the same time, we give consideration to the elected officials, which would be every 4 years.
Mike, we actually could combine a couple of the concepts in those, could we not? If we, I mean,
We can mix and
option
match.
A, instead of the $1,000 cap, we could have a 90% cap and use that same theory, correct?
The 90% cap, you said? With-
Couldn't we use that in alternative A versus the $1,000 cap? In other words, cap the chief deputy no more than 90% instead of the up to $1,000, correct?
That's alternative B.
Yeah, I think that's alternative B you're describing? Or is it somehow different, or?
Well, not entirely, I don't think it is.
Yeah, really, the board has two choices. I mean, you've got to determine, do you want a cap?
Well, but see, alternative B allows compensation to be addressed every year in line. Oh, I see, without having to visit the issue each year. And is it worth discussion also, it's not just a percentage that the Board of Commissioners may give all non-union people. Aren't there step increases in there also that could come into play? And I didn't see those addressed here.
Does not address those. Adam's shaking his head that he wants to say something. Yes, go ahead, Adam.
Well, it doesn't address it. It includes them in the classification and the compensation plan. That's what's meant by the step increase.
Right, so Adam, so they could conceivably get step increases as more
Right.
time, correct? And then also get, for instance, like a 2% increase, correct?
Yep.
But that's not spelled out in here, is it?
Well, that's what it means by it's in the county's classification and compensation plan.
Okay, I got what you're saying.
Well, I'm not ready to make a motion, but I'm supportive of the plan that caps the chief deputies at no more than 90% of, and it doesn't mean necessarily to move them there right now, but, and I'm also okay with this allowing them to be part of the step increases and the 2%, but I like personally the 90% cap versus the $1,000 cap. And it's certainly going to take some time to get some of the chief deputies adjusted to that, because we're not talking about necessarily decreasing anybody's now, we're talking about how to give increases and to stay within that, but somebody else can talk, but that's what I'm most supportive of right now.
More discussion? Commissioner Rice?
A comment on the 90% cap that was just mentioned by Commissioner Elwell. It was also mentioned about like step increases and so on and so forth. Are we not going to look at this from a perspective that we are going to be handling the chief deputies the same way we do as elected officials? So whatever the standard is of pay, let's say hypothetically, then we would get rid of the step increases and other increases, that they would just get whatever that capped amount would be?
That's option C. Yeah, that's one option.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought that our primary objective was to try and not have the cases like we have in some instances where the chief deputy is making more than the department head or the elected official. And I think that with the step increases still in place, we still could be in that same kind of a problem. Unless somebody can explain to me differently, I guess I would be more inclined to go with option C so that we can try and keep the alignment.
If I may. With options A and B, the chief deputies would be capped. It's up to within $1,000 of the chief elected official or the elected official, and then option B is up to 90%, even with any step increases they may or may not receive.
Well, just a suggestion, again, the 90% thing could also be integrated into the C proposal, but I wonder if it makes more sense for us to not necessarily forward anything right now and maybe have this as a topic of discussion at a study session, because I think everybody needs to understand the step increase principle also that does appear to still be part of this. And I think versus us making a recommendation, sending it to the full board, not all commissioners are here, they'd be uneducated. I mean, I want to do the right thing, but I want to make an educated decision, and I think at a study session would give us time to well, but not everybody here is voting, I don't think. A study session would give us time to understand the elements that aren't addressed in here, like the steps and other things, so, and time to talk amongst ourselves, and I don't recall seeing input from the elected officials here. Maybe I've missed it, but has there been any input, Mike, from the elected officials on what their preference is?
We've had conversations, there's been opportunity, but nothing in particular.
Yeah. Well, that would be my preference, that we put it off just a little bit longer, talk about it at a study session, and maybe bring it back next month, would be my thought. Sure. Support. Aye. We're voting here. While we're on the technology, can I ask if, on the old system, we could go back and change our vote before it was locked in? Can we do that with this or not? We can? Okay.
Finance Department.
I did some follow-up, and the townships receive $1 per license sold at the local unit.
Wonder if it makes sense.
It's really at the preference of what they want to do at the local unit. Some aren't open a lot during the week. Others don't want to be bothered by it, but we at least give them the opportunity. If they wish to do that, they get $1 per license that they issue. You know, I checked with the gals down in the office. They cannot remember who set that fee. I think it was set for my predecessor, and it's just been that way. So we can have a discussion about it. I've not have been asked the question by the local units, so we've never had this discussion.
Well, Karen, if somebody comes into your office and buys a license, I'm assuming that you input it right there?
That's correct. Yes, right into the database.
If the townships do it, you know how it is? Do they fill out a form and then have to send it down, or?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that, more paperwork.
It is more paperwork. Yeah, because we have to manually, we've got a bag from each township that issued March 1st when they come in. We have to manually enter those into our database.
If that's part of BSNA, would they be able to do it there through that or not, I wonder?
Ideally, yes. It's not fully integrated to do that yet. But there have been conversations to use that technology to be more efficient in that respect.
We receive our license application from your treasurer's office.
Yes.
We take it to the township, and they just, it's same dog, same everything. Does that come to you? You don't have to re-input it, that, do you?
Yes.
You do have to put it?
The license, just the paperwork.
Just the paperwork?
Just the paperwork. They issue the license, the dog tag, the physical tag, right at the local unit, send the customer on their way, and then we just get the paperwork to update. We input the dog, the rabies certificate verification if it's due. We input that into the database.
But if it's the same dog and all the information's the same, you don't have to change it?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
We just update. All you ever wanted to know about dog licensing.
Yes. Thank you. If I just may clarify, the taxes we're talking about with the number of 753 parcels, just for clarification, those were billed in 2009, and individuals had 2010, 11, and 12 to pay. Is that correct? Only the first year through their township office, the first portion.
We will be
Or are these-
foreclosing on 2010 at the end of this month.
Okay,
Does that help clarify? Yes.
10.
Anything else? Okay.
Yes, if I may make a recommendation, not that we would require my colleagues to do this, but maybe if someone would be so kind to offer a little bit of a mock election prior to Tuesday's mock voting session, if you think there's going to be any issues. Is there any value in coming 15 minutes early, 30 minutes early, and trying it for individuals that are struggling so that the board runs efficiently, the board meeting and smoothly? It's a thought.
Commissioner Alexander, part of the issue is the Carrie she has to type the motion in before the vote will come up. She's learning how to do it also.
But normally that's there ahead of time. Delane had put most of them in, there was just one missing. So I think, for the most part, that will be there. But if you change the motion, then I have to type in exactly what it's changed to.
Meeting adjourned.